Tesla's partnership with Hertz may have hit some rocky times, but the real problem isn't with Tesla, it's with Hertz and the vultures who came in to make a bunch of money from the ashes of the company as it was emerging from bankruptcy. Let's go into it a little bit and discover exactly how it is that they got so sideways on it. I'm joined by Mark from the Tesla Life, who's got some fantastic insights on these things and knows a thing or two about a thing or three. It's a unique qualification. We're happy to have him. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. So, Mark, you heard the exciting news, those many years ago. We can start with that one. It was a big deal at the time because they really hadn't been available for rentals.
Yeah, this was a landmark deal, something that had never happened before, especially in this volume that Hertz announced.
Yeah, they were moving into a new era. Hertz announced a new electric vehicle push that will see them order 100,000 Teslas by the end of 2022. They never did buy that many, but they bought a lot, and they bought plenty from other brands as well. I think they were hoping to get a sweetheart deal, and it looks as though they kind of did not, though Tesla does have a division responsible for fleet sales. The Model 3s will be available by Hertz customers by November. Across the US and in certain cities in Europe, and they plan to install thousands of electric car chargers near its locations in US neighborhoods and airports. And no, just for themselves, but you need charging. And those renting will be able to get premium and differentiated services that include special guidance on how electric vehicles work. Did that ever happen?
No, it didn't.
No, it did not. We've heard plenty of horror stories when Kelly and I were out cleaning up a supercharger. Kelly from the Michigan Club runs a program, Adopt a Supercharger, where they go out every week or sometimes twice and just pick up trash. And they wear vests that say what they're doing, and they talk to people and ask them if they need help. Well, we found a gentleman who had just rented a Hertz, and they just threw him the key card and said, have fun. And he had no idea how to find chargers, how to charge, any of the best practices. And so he didn't even know how to adjust the mirrors. So the education part was missing, and that's left some customers with a bad taste in their mouth. But that's not the real problem. So now we get to this one where we get to see Hertz EV bet what went wrong. It went horribly sideways, and why? Why do you think it probably went wrong in addition to the fact that they were not educating customers on how these cars actually work?
I understand that the rental car business is a little bit different than most other businesses. They keep a lot of the cash that they have in the business, of course, invested in the vehicles that they're renting. And they are on a strict timetable about when those cars actually are resold to a reseller so that they can get that capital back and invest in new vehicles. So they've got a schedule that they have followed with ICE cars forever. They know how much depreciation happens to these vehicles within that time period, and they were betting the Teslas would be exactly the same. What they weren't betting on was that Tesla at one point during their ownership of just a year and a bit dropped the price of new cars. And they had never experienced that type of a retail price drop, so their asset that they had became less valuable overnight.
So what they often do, and I had rented a car once for 3 months. I was getting repairs done on my BMW. I was rear-ended at a stoplight, and the adjuster just forgot to come out and do it. I kept calling them. They got annoyed, so I just stopped calling. And it was on their credit card, not mine. And then 3 months later, they called me in a frantic fury asking, wait, you still have our car? Yeah, it's been racking up, huh? I returned the car. I'd put 7,500 miles on it in those 3 months because I was driving a lot for work at the time. And they couldn't believe it. So the way it works is rental car companies generally buy cars at a price so low it would blow your mind. They buy excess and junk cars that the company can't move. People hated the Pontiac Aztec. Guess what? They're all rentals now because it was so cheap for them to get. When the car companies don't want to idle a line, they make extra cars and they say these will go out to the fleets. We'll make them cheaper. So they would buy a car for less than some of the dealers would pay, drive it 2 years, 3 years, while it still is under warranty, and then sell it. And if they sell it themselves, which some companies do, they would sell it for Blue Book. Whatever the current Blue Book is, no dick or sticker, we're going to just sell it. It's at whatever today's Blue Book value is. So no hassle, no nonsense. That price is roughly equal to what they paid for the car 2 or 3 years earlier. They get the car for free. Now with Tesla, they were buying at the highest point in the market, somehow unaware that just a few years later, the market would return to normal. And that was a perfect storm of absolute stupidity. So that's a big problem. And you got to figure this was a hedge fund that was doing this. The guy running Hertz was a vulture. His objective was to pump up the stock price, and this did it. Long term, we don't care about that. So when we look at some of these companies here, we'll see the other way they get rid of them is many times they will have it written into the contract that the manufacturer will buy it back for a certain price, for a certain amount of depreciation, and then they just fleet sale them out. So whatever it's worth after that, a friend of mine bought one of those. It was a Oldsmobile Silhouette that had come back from a lease return, and there you go, it was gone. Yeah, move these vehicles. And this chart shows, on average, these 4 companies potentially buy nearly 2 million cars and trucks a year. That's a big percentage. And this is the distribution of brands that they buy them from. So when it comes to disposing them, nearly half of cars sold by Avis and Hertz were so-called program cars, subject to such agreements where they just take them back. Give you a fixed price that was predetermined before the car went out. Dollar and Thrifty do less of that. They nearly never use this option, choosing instead to rely principally on the used car market. The beauty is these cars are under warranty. Anything that goes wrong. Now, Hertz was saying, well, the high cost of repairs and maintenance. No, I don't buy that. The renter's insurance would cover any repairs from damage, and the warranty would cover any repairs from mechanical defect. So I don't buy that. What do you think?
I think that you're right. The insurance should have covered any damage that was caused by accidents. And of course, loss of revenue was probably covered under insurance as well. So that makes sense. What they were doing, though, is that these vehicles were on a different plane. They weren't used to having EVs. They didn't understand where the value proposition was with EVs. In fact, what could have happened, Brian, is if they had have really looked at the beauty of EVs with less maintenance, they could have designed a program that could have kept that car in play an extra year or a year and a half, because they knew that there was going to be no maintenance or little maintenance for that vehicle compared to a nice vehicle. But they just tried to run the program exactly like they ran it for the for the Dodge and for the GM and the Ford, and that just didn't work.
So there's another way they make money that doesn't work with EVs: upselling. So let's say you reserve your Tesla. They say, oh, hey, you want to upgrade to the next size up? Unless you have a Y right next to it, you can't really do this. This doesn't really work. It's not a real thing you can do. And some of the other upsells they really like to do is charge you for things like GPS.
Yeah.
You can't charge me for GPS. You can't charge me for the XM radio. When I get in the car, I scan the QR code. I had a service loaner recently, and when I got in, I just scanned the QR code, and Spotify resumed in the middle of the song I was just listening to in my car. It's all there. It knows where my home is. It's basically my car at that point.
Maybe they were planning with the base Tesla to just cover the screen in duct tape.
I think they were hoping that Tesla would give them the ability to do these nonsense upcharges, and Tesla declined to create. I would like to see Tesla create a rental app for you, for Turo, for anyone, that when you get in, it gives you the QR so you can customize your settings if you'd like, but it also says, hey, you're a renter. Would you like to know how to charge this car? How to adjust everything? Here's a menu that you can go into right now to do those things. And it would just always be there when when you're signed out of the car. If no one's signed in, have that option available. And
Yeah.
that would be great for rental companies, for Turo owners, for you to lend your car to your in-laws when they're visiting. It doesn't matter. It would be a great feature. But you know that Hertz would say, well, we need it to paywall some basic features. And I'm confident Tesla would say no, because our cars are being sold to you so they can advertise for our cars, and it's not going to fly with us.
Yeah, they don't want to rent out a handicap version for a person's first view of the Tesla electric car.
So another mistake I think they kind of made was they made the deal too good for Uber drivers. You can rent a Tesla near you, an Uber deal, where Uber drivers were getting the car for like $200 or $300 a week, including insurance. And $800 a month is not enough to cover the depreciation if you're not able to sell the car at the same price you paid for it. That would be plenty if it was just that, but you had these Uber drivers out there running these cars hard, and as hard as any driver would, and they don't know best practices, and they're getting frustrated because they're trying to charge from 80 to 100% when that's not the right use case when you don't have home charging. So it is, I think that also bit them a little, because instead of getting, $40 a day, getting $1,200 a month, they were getting less. And I really do think I'd seen deals where it was significantly less than $800 a month, and it just didn't keep up with the depreciation.
Yeah, that's difficult for sure.
And my last one on this topic, I think, let me see, it is the last one on this topic, that is pretty dumb, is a Hertz customer who rented a Tesla somehow got charged $277 for gas in a Tesla, but it doesn't have a gas engine. After returning the Tesla he'd rented in Los Angeles, the renter, who selected the skip the pump and save time option on his reservation so he wouldn't have to worry about any additional fees, Hertz, in its infinite wisdom, did not admit fault and submitted a billing inquiry regarding it. But yeah, Hertz said they're not able to provide a price adjustment or refund service. The service was provided, contract was closed. So that's great.
That's kind of like if you bought a Chevy Bolt, getting a bill for an oil change or a notification that an oil change is required for your Bolt.
Yes, and by the way, we already charged you for it. And it was $300. So congratulations. I guarantee you there are used car lots out there who will sell you a prepaid oil change package on your EV.
Oh
please,
yeah.
please don't fall for that. These guys are going to be giggling all the way to the bank, where they don't even have an account because they're such terrible people they can't be trusted with even their own money, but they will walk in and giggle. There was a whole call about it. It's not a good situation. I have not had bad luck with rental companies. When I used Hertz, I did fall for the prepaid toll scam where it's like, oh, it's like $10 a day or something, $15 a day, and it just covers all your tolls. And then I found out that the tolls in Texas are like $1.50. It's like, oh, you got me. You got me. Yes. And I'm not even driving through them every day, but just 1 or 2 days, maybe 3 days out of 6. Oh, you got me. But now I know better, and I won't fall for that one again. Hey, if Hertz wants to stop renting Teslas, that's fine. But I'll stop using Hertz. That's the reason they got so many new executive level accounts. All these people frequently traveling for business. There are a lot of those who want these cars, and we'll just go back to using Turo to rent them instead.
Yeah, Hertz really should have looked at the EV market as a whole a little bit closer than what they did. This was a PR move as they were coming out of difficult times, and they jumped all over this. They made their stock boom. They did because they made such a splash with the purchase of 100,000 EVs, or the proposed purchase of 100,000 EVs. But this is something that if they could have managed it much better, and I would say they could have been successful if they had have understood what they were renting.
Absolutely. So to recap, the reason we believe Hertz failed was in part because they paid way too much for the cars, in part because they failed on their promise to educate renters about how to actually use them. They didn't understand that the upcharge opportunities are much more limited in this class, and what else? And yeah, they left some renters with a real bad taste in their mouth because they just completely misunderstood the business prospects overall. And we did
And they
see,
tried to sell
yeah,
those vehicles on a market that had dramatically dropped from the highs that they purchased the vehicles at.
we saw a lot of folks just a few months ago when the program started getting to the end where they are retiring vehicles who were paying $20,000 to get a Tesla that was just a few years old with, life left on the warranty. It's very exciting for them. Hopefully they'll figure it out a little better. Hopefully Hertz will start to show support for EVs. And for that matter, you guys can show support by using Patreon or X or YouTube to become a channel member, a patron, a subscriber, whatever it is. But you don't have to do that. That is just the way that I'm able to do things, like go to Europe for the big takeover on the 24th through the 26th. Hey, if you're in Zurich, I'm going to be staying real close to Zurich. Let me know. Maybe we can grab lunch or visit. I'll be in Constance, Germany, which is very exciting. Hanging out with Jan from TeslaFix. And that support is how I'm able to do all these fun things. So yeah, every bit of support helps. I would say if you're a new visitor, subscribe, like, do the usual things, leave a comment. If you see a comment that's just crazy, maybe offer your perspective politely, because polite is what we try to do here. Facts always win. So,
Brian, you wouldn't be happen to go to maybe join in our protest or two while you're in Berlin, would you?
no, no, and it's because I don't have the inflatable turtle, which is, I
There you
believe,
go.
standard issue. I think it's very unusual that someone decided to bring their pleasure device with them. But if that's how you unwind after a long day, then my friend, turtle on, I guess. So yeah, everybody else, like, subscribe, do the usual. Head on over to the Tesla Life with Mark and Casey and Patrick, who do a weekly show. It is fantastic, and where I learn quite a few things, believe it or not. Everybody else, stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots in the very long line to rent a car.